We are going to continue on our conversation with multiplication, and we are going to learn a new strategy to multiply today. The new strategy that we are going to learn is called an area model. An area model is a real-world application of multiplication because when we have an area or a space, for instance, a room in your apartment or your house, that is called area. It's how much space an object takes up. And we use multiplication to find that space. Today, we're going to focus on finding the area of squares and rectangles by using multiplication. To get us started, I'd like us to review our success criteria. So let's take a look at this video from Miss Thaxton, and she's going to go over our goal for today.
Hi, third grade. Today we're going to continue with our multiplication learning representing multiplication in different ways. Today we're going to focus on representing multiplication as an area model.
Alrighty, area models today. So we're going to take a look at a short video. I need to click on add response about what an area model is. And then you guys are actually going to begin creating some area models using your shapes tool on Seesaw. Before we do that, we need to understand what it is that we are creating. So this is an example of a strategy for multiplication called an area model. You'll notice they will look very similar to arrays, but instead of having a space between them, the items are going to be touching. Let's take a look.
Okay, here you see an orange box and a blue box. Each of these boxes are called area models, and you can know that they're an area model because you can see that inside the larger shapes are smaller squares. These smaller squares are called square units. Area models are broken up into square units, and they work much the same as an array in that you have rows and you have columns. Rows, remember, go across the shape. So this orange shape has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns. And we can count those rows and columns in order to make an multiplication equation, just like we can with an array. So if we were to write a multiplication equation for this orange shape, we would count how many rows there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows. And each row has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 square units. So the multiplication equation for this shape would be 5 times 5 equals 25, because 5 groups of 5 are 25. We can do the same thing with this blue shape. So in this blue shape, we can count. We have 1, 2, 3 rows. And then we can count the columns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns. That means we have 3 rows of 5, or 3 groups of 5. And 3 groups of 5 is 15. On the next page, you're going to get a chance to try this on your own.
All right. So now inside of Seesaw, this assignment has been unlocked to you. This assignment is called Area Models in Multiplication. So please go to your activities, area model multiplication, and select multiplication area model and add a response. We're going to work on some of these slides together today, and you're going to work on some of the slides independently. So please select multiplication area model. It should be at the top of your activities, and add a response. Again, you might want to split your screen so that you can see my instructional screen and your work screen at the same time. You can do that by using the minimize squares, the restore down squares at the top, and using your arrows to drag an item into a smaller space. Okay, all right. Slide 1 is the video that we just watched. Now we're going to work on slide 2. So please go to slide 2. We're working on slide 2. The question is, what multiplication equation does each area model represent? I'm going to ask you guys to use two different colors today. I'm going to ask you to use one color to count the rows and a different color to count the columns. So choose a color. I don't care which color you choose. Choose a color. And we're going to count how many rows there are. There are 1, 2, 3 rows. That is our first number in our multiplication equation, is the number of rows, which is also the number of groups. Now we're going to switch colors. So choose a different color. Again, I don't care what color you choose as long as it's different from the first one. And we're going to count the number of items in each row. There are 1, 2, 3 items in each row. So this is 3 groups of 3. When we count these, we would know that that equals 9. And if you needed to touch each square to count that there are 9, that is okay. So this multiplication equation would be 3 times 3 equals 9. Let's take a look at the second one. And again, we're going to use two different colors. So I'm going to go back to my first color and I'm going to count the number of rows. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So my first factor in my multiplication equation is 4 because there are 4 rows, also known as 4 groups. Now I'm going to use my second color, and my second color is going to count the number of items in each row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 7 items in a row. So 7 is my second factor inside of my multiplication equation. Now I'm going to go ahead and count. I don't have 4 times 7 memorized, so I'm going to count each square. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. So 4 times 7 has a product of 28. This is how you would use area models to represent multiplication equations. What questions can I answer about what I have just showed you or what the correct answer is? What questions can I answer about that? Slide 3 says use the label tool to type a multiplication equation to go with each area model. I'd like for us to do one of these together, and then I'm going to give you some time to finish these before we check the correct answers. So on your label tool, go ahead and click, and let's work on this first red one together. We're going to count the number of rows first. So I'm actually going to switch to my pen tool because that strategy really helps me of touching each row. And I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. So the first factor that I will put in my multiplication equation is 4. Now I'm going to count how many I have in each row by touching inside of the row. Oops, I didn't mean to change that color. 1 second, please. There we go. There we go. I have 1, 2, 3 squares in each row. So my second factor is going to be 3. I cannot switch this and say that it is 3 times 4. 3 times 4 would look very different. If this were 3 times 4, this would be rotated on its side. This correct answer is the only correct answer. There are 4 rows and there are 3 in each row. If I were to call this 3 times 4, my rectangle would have to be turned. And my rectangle is not turned, so that is an incorrect answer. Okay? The only correct answer is 4 times 3. We were asked to create an equation, so we have to make sure we put an equals sign with a product. So I'm going to count how many are in 4 times 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I have a product of 12. 4 times 3 is equal to 12. What questions can I answer about why that is the correct multiplication equation? Okay. Right now, I'm going to ask you to independently complete the rest of these equations. You're going to finish 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 using the label tool to type a multiplication equation. I'm going to give you some time to work, and then I'm going to show you the correct answers. Okay? So use your label tool right now to finish the rest of slide 3. Please finish the rest of slide 3 now. So again, I'm going to put the correct answers on the screen, and I'm going to stop at the end of each model and ask if you have any questions or need any clarification. Okay? All right. So we're going to take a look at the yellow rectangle first. We're going to look at the yellow rectangle. On the yellow rectangle, I have 2 rows. So my first factor should be a 2. The first factor has to be a 2. If you had a different number, you counted the number of columns first, and that does not describe this rectangle. Now I will count the number of items in each row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So my second factor is a 6. This should have given you a product of 12. The correct answer for the yellow rectangle is 2 times 6 equals 12. 2 times 6 equals 12. What questions can I answer about this rectangle? Okay, we're feeling good. All right, let's take a look at this long, skinny green rectangle. This one's kind of difficult for me to see the individual squares, so I'm going to be very careful and take my time. I notice that I only have 1 row, so my first factor is a 1. There is only 1 row inside of this rectangle. Now I'm going to count each individual square, and I'm going to use my dot because it's hard for me to see with this color and those black lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So this is a row of 12. So my multiplication statement is 1 times 12, and we know that this would equal 12 because anytime a number is multiplied by 1, it is itself, and also we just counted all the squares and they were 12. The only correct answer is 1 times 12 equals 12. If you did 12 times 1, that would mean the rectangle would have been tall this way, and it's not. So that is an incorrect answer. Aiden L. Question.
Call the book right quick.
I'm still stuck on.
Okay, all right, heard that. All right, I'll be ready.
Aiden, I cannot hear you at all because of the background noise that's going on. Try to move to a more quiet area or type in the chat and then I can answer your question. Aiden Hampton.
You go back to 1. I mean
Go back,
2.
go back to what?
2.
Do you have a question about something on slide 2?
I did something wrong on there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that what you needed?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. All right, let's take a look at this grayish blue one down here, this grayish blue one down here. I'm going to count my rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. My first factor is a 6. That is the only number that can go in that first position. Now I need to count the number in each row. 1, 2, 3. My second factor is a 3. If I were to touch each individual square and count each square, I would know that 6 times 3 has a product of 18. This is the only correct answer. If you did 3 times 6, that would mean the rectangle would look like this, and it is not on its side, so that is incorrect. Please give me a moment. I'm going to respond to a question in the chat. Alrighty. Now let's take a look at our purple rectangle here. We can see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4 items in a row. So our first factor is a 4. Now we'll look at how many we have in one row. That number is also 4. We know if we were to count each individual square that 4 times 4 has a product of 16. What questions are there about this rectangle? Okay, awesome. Let's take a look at our next one, which is our final one. This is a taller rectangle that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows. My first factor has to be a 6. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 square units or items in each row. So my second factor is a 5. 6 times 5 has a product of 30. What I'm wanting you to see, ladies and gentlemen, is that the order of the factors matters, okay? The order of the factor matters. If you were to switch the numbers, that would change the way that the rectangle would look. And that is very important for you to understand in an area model, because as I shared with you, we use area models to count the space inside of a room. So I'll share a little bit about that with you in a moment, but first, are there any questions? Okay, so I'm going to share something with you right now. I don't want you to do what I'm about to do. Okay, I'm going to create something to give you an example, all right? So let's say that we were looking at the blueprints of a house. Let's say you were deciding if you wanted to buy this house or to rent this apartment, whatever it may be. When you look at the blueprints, you're going to see something called a floor plan. And a floor plan is going to show you the amount of space that might be inside of that area. So for example, let's say that this was where the door was. So this is where you walk into the area and you take off your shoes. Then let's say you walked into the living room. So this is where you have your couch. This is where you might have a chair. This is where people will spend their time together in your living space. Okay? And then back here, you have the kitchen. Okay. And then right here, we might have a nice hallway. And then back here, we have our bedroom. Okay, so you're looking and you're deciding, do I want to buy this place? Here's what's going to happen. Where the kitchen is, there's going to be an equation, and it's going to say that the kitchen is 6 feet by 12 feet. What that tells you is that the kitchen has a width of 6 feet. It has a length of 12 feet. So the reason that it's important that our 6 comes first is because you'd be very confused if you thought you were buying a kitchen shaped like this and you walked in and it was going the other way. This would be 12 times 6. Okay, so the order of the factors is important because it describes the space that an object or a room is taking up. Okay, so our 6 would have to come first because it's telling us how wide the kitchen is. So when we're using area, we actually call this width times length. So how wide is it by how long is it? We'll get into that later this year, but that's why it's important for you to understand you have to count your rows first. You have to count how many are going across. How many groups are going across is a row, okay? So factor order matters, all right? Okay. Go to slide 4. You don't have to do anything on slide 4. This is a video of what we're going to try next. So I'm going to play this video for us. You do not need to play it on your computer. That will sound very confusing. Here is the video.
Sometimes we're given a multiplication equation and we need to come up with the area model that goes with it. Let's take a look at our first equation. 4 times 6 equals 24. We're going to build an area model that matches the 4 times 6 equals 24. And remember, area models are made up of square units. So we're going to go down here and we're going to find our square. Always going to use square units, regardless of what the greater shape is going to end up being. Okay, so there's our first square unit. We know by looking at the equation that we have 4 rows of 6. 4 rows of 6. 4 times 6 is 4 rows of 6. So we're going to click on our shape and we're going to hold down our control key on our keyboard and we're going to hit C. That's going to copy that shape. Then if we hold control down again and hit V as in very nice, we're going to copy that, put another shape just like that. And now we've got 2 squares. Every time we hit Control V, that gives us another square. Then we can take these and we can arrange them into our area model. Now we've got 4 rows started, and each row should have 6 in it. So we're going to continue to build until we have 6 square units in each row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Our first row has 6 in it. The second row, we need to continue to build so that it also has 6 square units. Okay, now we have 2 rows of 6. Gonna need some more squares. Control VB multiple times. Now I'm ready to build my third row of 6. And the last row of 6. All right, so now what I ended up with is a larger shape in the shape of a rectangle. but it's made up of square units, and it should be 24 square units based on the product that's given to 4 times 6 listed below. Let's go ahead and count those units to make sure that's what we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. 24 units. Okay, we're going to do the same thing with our 3 times 3 equals 9. We're going to go ahead and grab a shape. This time I'm going to show you how you can make the shape so you can see through it. It might make it easier for you to click on the, there you go. Now you can see through the shape. It might make it easier for you to count your squares. Bring that down a little smaller. Now we're ready to, we're going to build a shape that's 3 times 3 equals 9. That means we need 3 rows of 3 square units. So let's go ahead and click this again and copy, Control C, and then paste more, Control V. And there's my first row of 3. There's my second row of 3. And my last row of 3. And if I built my shape correctly, I should end up with 9 square units in this shape. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now you're going to do the same thing on the next slide. You're going to build a shape, and then you're going to build a shape based on the given equation on the page. Good luck.
Okay. So now instead of reading the rectangles, you're going to create the rectangle. So please go to slide 5. Move on to slide 5. If you're a little bit behind, remember you can always watch the video recording to catch yourself up. I don't want you to continue working on what we've finished so that you will miss what we're starting. So everybody right now, please go to slide 5. That way you don't get doubly behind. Okay. All right, so on slide 5, we asked to use the Shapes tool to build an area model for each multiplication problem. Our Shapes tool is over here inside of our snowman, and it says Shapes. When you select the orange square, it's going to be a little bit bigger than the squares that we need. So resize it down so that it's the same size as one square. Go ahead and do that right now. Go to your Shapes tool, choose the orange square, and then use your drag tool to make it the same size as the squares that are on the grid.
Question.
Then I will show you how to copy and paste. So make it the same size first.
We could duplicate too. We could use the duplicate button.
Okay, 2 ways to do this. The first way is to select your snowman and click duplicate. That's going to make a bunch of copies for you. The second way is to use your keyboard. So in order to use your keyboard, we talked about this earlier in the week.
Like this?
You're going to push the control button in the bottom corner of your keyboard, CTRL, and you'll press C. That copies it. Then when you press control again and press V, look, it just appears on my screen a whole bunch of times. Okay, so you can press control C to copy an item, and then control V, and V means view, so you can see it. Okay, I'm going to take my squares that I've copied, and I'm just going to kind of put them off in the corner here. That way they're not in my workspace. So go ahead and do that too. If you made a whole bunch of squares all over the page, just move them over to the side so that you have a clear workspace and you don't get confused by the squares that you're using. Okay. All right, we're going to look at this equation. We're asked to create 4 times 3. That means we need 4 rows. So that means I'm going to need 4, oops, I didn't mean to do that. I'm going to need 4 items that are going this way. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to create that right now by putting my squares in rows. This does create 1 column going up and down, but we know that we're going to add more going across. So put your 4 in a stack there to show your 4 rows going across. Now we're going to switch to 3 in each row. That means we're going to need 1, 2, 3. You count the first square that you already put there. I noticed when we were making arrays, some of you didn't start counting until you got right here. That's a problem because you're actually going to end up with 4 because you forgot to count your first one. So you do count that first one that's already there. 4 times 3. So I have 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to finish filling in my rectangle. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Your rectangle should look like this exact shape. It should be 1 taller than it is going sideways. Okay. Questions on why this is the correct answer? Okay. I'm noticing that I'm going to need some more squares, so I'm going to go ahead and copy my squares, Control C, Control V, or I'm going to use that duplicate button and create more, whichever way is easier for you. And I'm going to kind of put my squares off to the side of this workspace here so that I have enough space to start my rectangle. Okay. For this rectangle, we are asked to create 7 times 2. I know that that means I need 7 items going across. So I'm going to start up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh man, there's not enough room. I guess I'll just have to quit. Nope. Just do it with the top square there. 7. It'll be over the directions and that's okay. We're going to place our rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this represents my first factor in my equation. Now I'm going to see that I need 2 in each row. So I have 1 already there. I need a second one. So that's what I'm going to do. 1, 2, done. 1, 2, done. 1, 2, done. 1, 2. I need more squares. This is how your rectangle should appear.
Miss Sousa,
Yes.
I don't know how to do that. I put it in 3 rows and I messed it up.
Are you talking about 4 times 3?
Yes.
Okay, let me take a look at your screen really quick and then I will see how I can help. Oh, I see your screen. Okay, so Marielle, all you have to do is fill in the middle of your rectangle. So just copy some more squares. Yeah, and then put the 2 in the middle. You just didn't fill in the 2 in the middle, and then it's perfect. So there's 2 white squares in the middle. Put your 2, yep, there you go. And you got it. Beautiful.
It's lunchtime.
Okay. All right, let's look at number 6, please. I'm going to give you an equation. I know that this said to write your own equation, but I want to make sure that we all understand. So I'm going to ask us to do the same one so I can review this. You're going to use the shapes tool to build an area model. Then you're going to write the multiplication equation that goes with your model. We're going to do this together. I'd like for everybody to create the multiplication equation of 4 times 8. I'm going to ask you today to create 4 times 8 independently. Okay, so pause. You're not going to do this right now. I want to talk about slide 7. On slide 7, you are focusing specifically on area models. I'd like for you to take your emoji when you finish your work and tell me, do you feel very successful? Do you feel like you need more practice, or do you feel like you really struggled? So you're going to tell me by circling which emoji best describes how you feel with what we learned today. And it's day 1 of this strategy. So it's okay if you feel like you need some practice or are struggling. Okay. So slide 6 is going to be completed independently. You are going to create 4 times 8. If you worked ahead and you already did something, sorry about your luck. That's why we don't work ahead. Go ahead and delete it, erase it, and then do what I asked you to do. Okay? Can't predict the future, kiddos. Got to follow along. All right.